This is the country analysis for Italy for Group 1. Group 1 consists of Mario Perkovic, Dejan Rasic, Dragan Rasic, Rochelle Surratt, and Ivory Carey. Italy has a colorful past which happened during the Roman Empire from 27 BC to 476 AD, where they ruled a large portion of the globe. They first gained independence March 17, 1861, but were formally unified in 1871. Allied with the Nazis under Mussolini regime, they were on the losing side of World War II. Um, they were part of the European Economic Community in 1957 since its inception, and then they joined the European Union in 1993 when it was established. Italy's president since 2015 has been Sergio Mattarella. Their prime minister Giuseppe Conte has been incumbent since 2018. In August 2019, he resigned for a short stint but agreed to return with a newly formed political coalition. Power is divided amongst 15 regions across the country. Legislative power is divided amongst the Senate della Repubblica and Camera dei Deputati. The Senate della Repubblica is the Senate, and Camera dei Deputati is the Chamber of Deputies. Situated in the southern part of Central Europe, it borders the Mediterranean Sea, with the southern tip reaching out towards Tunisia and Africa. It also has many islands that are scattered across both sides of the peninsula. The capital city is Rome. Italy also contains two landlocked independent states in San Marino, whose capital is San Marino, and Vatican City, whose capital is Vatican City. They have a Mediterranean climate, which means dry summers and mild wet winters, and are mountainous throughout, with the Alps and the Dolomites being the main mountain ranges. The country is littered with valleys, lakes, and rivers throughout its peninsula. Italy has a population of 62.4 million citizens. The primary ethnic group is Italian. German, Slovenian, French, and several other smaller ethnic groups make up the remaining population. Population density is 205 citizens per square kilometers. The median age is 46.5 years, with a life expectancy of 82.5.
Italian working days. Italians work typically Monday to Friday or Monday to Saturday, depending on the employer that they have. Italians genuinely get 12 holidays a year and at least 4 weeks paid vacation, but there's also a time in August called Ferragosto that is anywhere from 2 to 4 weeks. They typically work 39 hours a week with a max of 48 hours, which includes a maximum of 8 hours of overtime per week. The days are 7 plus working, with starting from 8 a.m. to 7 p.m. with a 2-hour lunch called riposa. Monday to Saturday workers work 8 a.m. to 2 p.m. with very minimal breaks. The business culture in Italy can be described as personal. It's very personal business interaction with eye contact and hand gestures. Italian people like to talk with their hands quite a bit and are very welcoming in person. The person-to-person communication is essential, and meetings are viewed as relationship-building opportunities. And some Italian businessmen and women view lunches as a way to build a relationship, so they'll take anywhere from 2 to 3 hour lunches as a business meeting. The official language in Italy is Italian, spoken predominantly across the whole country, but you'll find German, French, and Slovenian as well in certain regions of the country. The business language in Italy is Italian, of course, where English can be found as the most popular foreign language and is used for international business. German and French can also be used in certain regions as business languages as well, but it is customary for foreigners doing business in Italy to know at least a little bit of Italian, and it's a sign of it's a good gesture for business operations. The literacy rate in Italy is 99.2%, where males are 99.4% literate and females are 99% literate. This could be attributed to the large emphasis on education within the country. There are two main time zones, UTC+1 and UTC+2. UTC plus 1 is the Central European time, and that is the time zone that Italy officially lies within. And UTC plus 2 is the European summertime, and it's used when daylight savings is in effect. UTC plus 1 is 6 hours ahead of Eastern Standard Time. The currency within Italy is the euro, and the exchange rate currently is 1.08 euros to $1.
Italy is one of the strongest powers in the world in terms of GDP, ranked at 12th in the world, which makes it the third strongest country in the Eurozone and the fourth strongest country in Europe in terms of GDP power. That puts it in line with France, Germany, and the United Kingdom, the UK being out of the EU just recently, and they never were part of the Eurozone. That puts it with countries such as Turkey, South Korea, and other major powers that would fall under the Western Bloc of economic style. Here you see the top 11 through 20 countries in terms of GDP power, and Italy highlighted in green at $2.32 trillion annually in GDP, which is only beaten by Mexico at $2.8 trillion. Followed by countries such as Turkey, South Korea, Spain, Saudi Arabia, and countries such as that. We see that European countries make up much of the top 20 in terms of GDP as well, with Italy, Spain, Germany, France, the United Kingdom, and others. In terms of GDP growth, Italy is at 1.5% year over year from 2016 to 2017, which gives it a per capita of 38,200, which is a 2.7% increase from the year 2015 to 2017. They did have a small dip from 2015 to 2016 in terms of GDP growth rate from 1% to 0.9%, but we see that it was a 0.6% increase from 16 to 17. Much like other strong powers in Europe, we see the household consumption is the highest in all of the end user consumption in terms of GDP, with household consumption being 61%, government consumption being 18.6%, fixed capital investment being 17.5%. Inventory investment is negative 0.2%, which compared to Estonia was a positive number, whereas Germany and Italy both have negative numbers. Exports of goods and services is at 31.4%. Imports of goods and services is at negative 28.3%. So a much less of the GDP is dependent on the trade comparatively to Estonia, who was the 116th country in the world. Here we see that visualized in the graph with household consumption being by far the largest thing on the graph, and you see that tiny little sliver of negative 0.2% on the fourth area of the chart, and with imports being the other major decline being over on the far right side of the chart. Every nation has production in some form or another. There are three major sectors, according to the CIA, that go into this GDP sector by origin, which are agricultural, industry, and services. Agriculture being anything that produces food, livestock, dairy, anything agricultural based. Industry being anything manufacturing, so you have your automotive, technical, things like that. Services industries are your accounting, transportation, mass transit, things like that fall into anything that isn't agricultural or industrial. When it comes to Italy, these three areas of GDP composition are broken down into 2.1% to agriculture, 73.9% into services, which matches every other country so far that we've analyzed, with the highest being in services, and industry falling there with 23.9% of total GDP composition by sector. This is a good illustration of the composition by sector of origin that shows that services do indeed make up nearly 3/4 of the total composition of GDP, with industry being right there around 25% or a quarter of the graph, except for the roughly 2% that is the agricultural part that make up the rest of the chart. Major products in Italy include agriculturally potatoes, vegetables, grapes, fruits, soybeans, olives, sugar beets, fish, dairy products, and beef. So they do a lot of agricultural stuff, even though it only makes up 2.1% of total GDP composition. As far as industrial, they have machinery, chemicals, textiles, food processing, steel, iron, tourism, which would probably fall under a service industry more so than an industrial industry, footwear, clothing, motor vehicles, and ceramics. Very few countries in the world survive without any exports or imports. Italy is no exception, with being the 12th power in the world in terms of GDP. They trade a lot with other European nations as well as those in other countries. The top 10 nations that Italy exports with are Germany at 12%, France at 10%, the United States at 9.3%, United Kingdom at 5.2%, Spain at 4.8%, Switzerland at 4.3%, China at 3.4%, Poland at 2.5%, the Netherlands at 2.4%, and Turkey at 2.4%. We see on this graph that a lot of those countries are European, with Germany, France, the United Kingdom, Spain, Switzerland, Poland, the Netherlands, and depending on who you ask, Turkey can fall under the European zone as well, but it is mostly an Asian country with most experts. Right here's a good illustration of the top 10 export partners that Italy has, with the remaining countries making up 43.7% of all trade. You see the top 10 again makes up the majority of all trade coming out of Italy. Items that Italy exports are vehicles and transportation equipment, chemicals, metals and minerals, textiles and clothing, food, beverages, and tobacco, products, machinery, and engineering products. So they do very heavily industrial stuff with a little side of agricultural in their exports. Many of the same countries that are export partners with Italy are also import partners, with the top 10 being roughly the same except for one notable exception, with Russia being at 3%. That falls in line with Germany at 16%, France at 9%, China at 7.2%, Netherlands at 5.6%, Spain at 5.1%, the United States at 3.8%, Russia at 3%, as we mentioned, United Kingdom at 2.9%, Switzerland at 2.8%, Poland at 2.5%. Germany and France being at the top of the list on both the import list and the export list makes sense considering they are the European number 1 and number 2 in terms of the EU as well as the Eurozone, with the United Kingdom falling in between them in terms of GDP strength worldwide. So you have Germany at number 5, the United Kingdom, and then France at number 10, with Italy at number 12. Here we see a graph that shows those import partners comparatively to the rest of the import partners, the top 10 being the colored portions of this chart, with Germany, France, and China being in the top 3. You see that they make up almost a third of all of the partners, with the remaining 7 being left over there at the bottom of the chart, with the rest of the world being around 43-42% of the total GDP by import partners. Germany's major imports include transportation equipment, chemicals, metals, and minerals, which are identical to their exporting as well, engineering products and energy products, food, beverages, and tobacco, and textiles and clothing.
The Italian school system consists of 4 tiers of education. This system uses ages instead of grades and ranges from 3 to 19 plus. Nursery schools from age 3 to 5, elementary schools from ages 6 to 11, lower secondary schools ages 11 to 14, upper secondary schools ages 15 to 18 or 19 depending on the type. The 5 types are classical high school, 5 years, vocational school, 5 years, nursery school, 3 years, primary teacher training, 3 years, and higher university education, 3 to 5 years. Property rights in Italy are enforced federally. Although property rights are at a federal level, intellectual rights aren't as heavily enforced and fall behind other European nations. In recent years, there have been numerous court battles over peer-to-peer file sharing. The legal system of Italy is based on Roman law and Napoleonic law, which is based on the Roman model. This system has a judicial branch that is separate from the executive and legislative to enforce independence. This function can only be performed by a judge or a magistrate. Italy is heavily involved in the scientific sector. Universities are researching and experimenting with plant growth in extremely harsh environments. They have a national focus on plant growth on Mars. The public infrastructure of Italy includes buses, taxis, metros, cars, trains, and airplanes. International travel is done via trains and air travel. With airports in major cities such as Milan, Rome, and Naples. As of 2017, there are 21,686 kilometers of paved roads in Italy.
Healthcare. Italy's healthcare system is a national healthcare service known as Servizio Sanitario Nazionale, or SSN. Offers universal coverage to residents and citizens free of charge. There are 2 levels of healthcare services: primary care and secondary care. Primary care includes patients' initial visit to the doctor where they are seen by a contracted physician. Secondary care consists of patients needing specialized care where they are seen by hospital doctors. There are 2 types of healthcare systems: public and private. Public is geared towards both preventative and prescriptive treatment. Private insurance falls under 2 categories: corporate and private insurance. Corporate insurance is paid by companies and covers families and employees. Private health insurance, only sometimes offered by companies as an incentive, however, offers similar care and treatment plans to corporate insurance. In 2007, there were 566 hospitals in Italy that were publicly owned, the highest number recorded during this period. Since then, the number of